Good evening guys, welcome back to the channel, it's your boy Sly Geordie and welcome back to F1 23 My Team Career Mode for the British Grand Prix. It's finally time for the home GP. We are over halfway through the season and we are leading in the championship. Of course, Max Verstappen is starting to fall behind just a little bit, meaning a lot, especially after that last race, of course, in Monaco, where we were just, Canada, and I suppose Monaco as well, seeing as they were both first place finishes. Max Verstappen, of course, DNF'd in Canada, so the woes for Red Bull completely continue. Ferrari are stumbling over each other, and we are just smooth sailing towards the title right now, our first F1 Drivers' Championship, and there is only 7 races to go to actually accomplish that feat. The British Grand Prix, which we were pretty strong at in Season 1, the Belgian Grand Prix, another track we were pretty strong at, so I'm quite confident heading into these next 2 races. Singapore is different, of course, especially since, you know, we didn't do well on that track in Season 1, but you've also got to think about the fact that for Season 2 here, with Singapore, it's going to be the new layout. Of course, the game hadn't been updated with the newer layout by the time we did it in Season 1. I think it was literally updated, like, a few days, up to a week after we actually did the Singapore Grand Prix episode, so I am looking forward to seeing how we do there. But looking at the driver market here, I just wanted to look at it out of curiosity at one point. I noticed that Lewis Hamilton isn't here anymore. I'm pretty sure the game is supposed to notify you when a driver is retiring, but you may have noticed, like I did, that we never got notified for the Fernando Alonso retirement in Season 1, and once again we have not been notified for the Lewis Hamilton retirement here in Season 2. So, yeah, I don't blame him for retiring in this season. Of course, Mercedes are just looking absolutely woeful this season. They are catching up a little bit, but just Mercedes are as far away as ever from their, you know, once dominance at the top of the Constructors' Championship and the Drivers' Championship, and Lewis Hamilton is just, I think he's kind of accepted that he's never going to get that 8th title at this point, and he has decided to retire. So, yeah, goodbye Lewis Hamilton. I'm quite excited to keep an eye on Mercedes going into the end of the season, or sorry, going into next season, as obviously the contract things have been fixed now, so we won't get new drivers by the time Abu Dhabi comes around. No, that we're not going to get any new drivers until Season 2. So I'm quite curious to see who Mercedes pick out to fill out that second seat. I don't know, but as you've probably noticed already, we actually have a special livery going into the British Grand Prix. It is November right now, which is usually the time when the charity Children in Need comes up for the BBC. So since we are a British team and it's going to be the British Grand Prix and it's actually November in real time right now is the perfect time to use this livery. So yeah, it's going to be a one-time thing. We'll be going back to the old, the usual livery after this race, and then I'm pretty sure the only special livery left will be the Vegas Grand Prix. So, yeah, if you're a fan of the usual livery, there's only one episode after this where we're not using it, and yeah, the rest we will be using it. I still don't have any ideas of what to do for Season 3. There's a lot of developments going in. Of course, I was actually considering obviously changing engines next season, which is still going to happen, and we'll get back to this point because it's raining in the British Grand Prix now, so that's something to keep an eye on going into this weekend. It's going to be full wet conditions on track, so I'm quite curious to see how that will go. But bringing it back to my point earlier with the whole engine supplier thing, I highly doubt that we are going to get a Ferrari deal anytime soon. We have completely jeopardized their season. If it wasn't for us, Ferrari would easily be leading the constructors. I think they are leading the constructors, actually. But they would also have Carlos Sainz leading the Drivers' Championship if it wasn't for me. So Ferrari are not going to be happy with us, and therefore they're definitely not going to be, selling their services to us. So Ferrari crossed off. Renault crossed off. That deal is done. And that leaves basically Red Bull powertrains, or Red Bull Ford. So it's not just Red Bull we're going to be dealing with. It will actually be Ford as well. So if Ford have a proper say-so, they can, overrule Red Bull and, give out their engine to us as well. And then there is also Mercedes, which I actually think we have the strongest chance of doing, simply because McLaren ain't doing the greatest. They ain't top of the charts. Mercedes themselves, obviously, I can't believe I just mentioned McLaren before the actual engine supplier, but whatever. Mercedes, they're not doing well at all, and I guarantee they're going to be wanting more money to put towards their car, and obviously if we give them that money, then yeah, that is helping Mercedes, but it also helps us for that season, of course. We've also got to think about season 4, where there's going to be new engine regulations, and I might be going, might stick with Mercedes, or I might sign up with Red Bull Ford. We'll have to see how things develop going into next season, of course. But here we go for our first lap around Silverstone in the STR02. And this season is just getting better. This car is feeling faster and faster, and it actually might be down to AI engine wear at this point once again. So take that with a grain of salt, but we are looking a lot quicker than a lot of the other drivers here, apart from Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz is seemingly pretty close to us anyway, so good for him, I suppose, but he's not beating us. Sainz has not managed to beat us just yet, unless you count Jeddah. That's the only track that he's managed to beat us at. But Silverstone we were really strong at last season, so we'll have to. He's going to have a harder time of it, but of course there's a spanner in the works because it's not going to be on dry, it's going to be in the wet. I'm not sure if I'm going to do anything to the setup. I've already done quite a bit to the setup compared to last season. I've actually got a full custom setup for the track compared to last year where we just used the balanced in-game setup. But yeah, so far really, really good. We're actually quite a well ahead of the rest of the grid, and unfortunately Lance Stroll is knocked out. I did mention it earlier when we were looking at the R&D, but you may have noticed it yourself, but Williams are actually they've actually had a major upgrade going into their home GP as well. So Lance Stroll is definitely going to struggle a little bit more, and you might have noticed that Logan Sargent was really high up there. So yeah, both Williams cars make it to Q2, which definitely frustrates me a little bit because obviously I want Stroll to be up there, but Stroll was only just knocked out of Q1, so I'm not going to be too fussed about that. But Q2, very, very easy, of course. We got through that pretty well. Q3, our first lap was really, really good. And then going into this second lap, we were actually slower, and we were losing time the more we were going. And as you can see, I checked my MFD to see if I'd accidentally left off something, and not that it would have mattered anyway. George Russell impeding on our racing line, but that first lap was so good, 5/10 ahead of Carlos Sainz. So at Max Verstappen P5, so AI engine wear's got to come into play. Verstappen's not getting that huge boost that he did originally, so he hasn't really put in any new parts in. He probably has only replaced the part that failed in Canada. So I don't know what's going on there with Max Verstappen, but more good for us.
Formula One World Championship. It's race day here at Silverstone, and it's time for the British Grand Prix. It wouldn't be Britain without some rain. Silverstone is a 3.6 mile long test with a total of 18 corners. The Wellington and Hanger Straights are great overtaking opportunities to tuck into the slipstream and then make your pass. Look out for Copse Corner, which is no joke in the wet. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. It's the owner-driver then in pole position. A very happy Carlos Sainz will start second. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Perez, Russell, Norris, Hamilton, Gasly, Leclerc, Bottas, Oscar Piastri, Magnussen, Teo Porcher, Albon, Verstappen, Sargent, Stroll, Ocon, Joe, Tsunoda, Liam Lawson, Hulkenberg, and Nick de Vries rounds off the grid. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? Joining me for the Grand Prix once again is Anthony Davidson. Now, can I get your take on Max Verstappen? And it's great to have the company of Anthony Davidson up here in the commentary box, and a great win for them last time out. What goes into a winning run like that?
There are never any guarantees in this business, but certainly the performance last time out would have boosted their confidence coming into this one.
Well, here we are, back home at Silverstone, and look at that. It's full wet conditions here, so I actually haven't changed the setup. I feel like the setup will still be good enough for these conditions, and if not, we might struggle a little bit, but I feel like everybody else is also going to struggle, so I'm not going to worry too much.
Here we go then, the formation lap is underway. There are wet conditions here today. Each driver will no doubt be mindful of the wet surface as they prepare to race around the track. So as all the cars reform the grid, the drivers will be hoping to get a strong start. They'll want to earn some valuable points from today's race, with final communications being done with their race engineers, ensuring their planned strategies are all in place.
Well, here we are, pole position at Silverstone, looking for our first win at the home GP. It is lights out and away we go, and it's a pretty similar start for everyone here. Sergio Perez has had an excellent start. Carlos Sainz has not actually had a pretty good start. Good enough start to stay in the fight, but Sergio Perez, Checo, has had a great start there. And here we go, looking to defend this first place position, and the car, I'm gonna be honest guys, it's not feeling very good. I feel like we definitely should have added some extra downforce. The game does kind of warn you in the emails, like, yeah, maybe you should add on some extra downforce since qualifying is dry, so you know, maybe you should have taken a bit of a deficit in qualifying to help yourself in the race, but I clearly haven't done that, and we are clearly struggling a little bit here. But and it actually seems that Ferrari, at least Carlos Sainz, is actually doing pretty good. He's able to keep up with us quite easily, to the point he's actually managing to get quite close to us, and it's coming down to the engine power. And I tried to give him space, as he does challenge me into that little hairpin there, and yeah, we went on to the gravel, and we've lost not only a position to Carlos Sainz, we've actually lost P2 to George Russell in the Aston Martin as well. Now we are under pressure once again from Checo. That's not good at all, and we're actually really struggling in Sector 2 specifically to keep up with George Russell, so it's definitely coming down to the lack of downforce here. But yeah, we're going to obviously try our best to get these positions back. We're burning our ERS to be able to dive bomb George Russell, and now we set off after Carlos Sainz once again. But I mean, look at how much time he has already gained. Carlos, and look at that understeer as well. Carlos Sainz and Ferrari have definitely chosen the right setup for these wet tyres, and he sets the fastest time of a 1:40.7, our quickest time being a 1:43.1. Wow. And look at all that understeer. We are really struggling with this boat of a car around these wet conditions in Silverstone. So something needs to be done. We need to either drive a little bit better, or we just need to, I guess it might even come down to luck, I don't know. Because if you saw the pit strategies earlier, pitting is the alternate strategy, but I don't think anybody here is going to pit. You know, there's only 18 laps. Why would anybody pit? You know, I feel like they'd be losing a lot of time if they did, or at least that's how it feels anyway. As we now go on to lap 4, and George Russell is now overtaken us legitimately. If you wanted any more proof of the car being absolutely horrendously set up right now, so this is not down to the car. This is entirely my fault. I did not do any downforce, and I mean, look at that horrendous understeer. We are now under pressure from Checo. George Russell, in just 2 corners, is already half a second ahead. So that's not good at all. I'm checking the tyre wear. There's high tyre wear on the front wheels. So yeah, this setup is just, it doesn't not just feel good. It also it's causing excessive tyre wear to the point that these front tyres are actually overheating. And it's to the point that I'm actually really contemplating going into the pits now. We're actually adding 5 onto the front wing downforce, and yeah, these tyres at the front overheating. They gotta go. We are a sitting duck, basically. We are holding up cars behind us. Sergio Perez is now overtaking us, and I'm actually going to give him a lot of room, as much as I can muster, because there's just no point fighting the Red Bull. Now, we're lucky that Verstappen seems to have taken a penalty, so yeah, nothing to really lose, especially if Verstappen isn't gaining any points here. We do need to worry about Sainz, but of course, Sainz hasn't been doing well in the last few races, at least anyway, and unless you count Canada, that P2 is pretty good, but since we came P1, it just really didn't make much of a difference at all. And now we are actually going into the pits. We're in the pits, and here we go. Sorry for that. I have a really irritated throat. Still got a cold, obviously, unfortunately. But there you go. Now let's see what we can do with these Inters. We are falling behind the pack, but we still have quite a lot of time to do this. So, you know, this is a big risk. This is a huge, huge risk. But honestly, like, the car felt so horrible. I feel like this is not even that bad of an option at all. So we're going for it. We're actually going for it with these Inters. 10 seconds behind the back markers of Nick de Vries, Nico Hulkenberg, Liam Lawson in the Haas. Logan Sargent didn't have a very good Q2 and Q3 despite a really good Q1, so he's there. But yeah, here we go. And you might be able to notice already, but just in case you haven't, the car feels a lot better. A lot better. So, yeah, a very similar race to Monaco where we were on the wets and we pitted for Inters and, you know, tried to overtake everyone else. But this is going to be a bit of a harder task. We have got to drive our absolute balls off to be able to come even close to some worthwhile points. So I'm taking this risk not just because you know, I feel like we have nothing to lose within the race itself, but also, like, within the championship we've actually got quite a gap over the rest of the grid now. So you know what, again, nothing to really lose. I feel like even if we finish pointless, we will still, yeah, we will definitely still be like P1 in the championship. So yeah, nothing to lose. We're going for it. So here we go. Takes up until lap 7 to catch up to the rest of the grid here, and it's a little pack here. Although the you're going to see in this race there are some huge gaps in the grid by the end of this race. But there you go, Nick de Vries, easy pickings. He is well behind even these guys. So yeah, Nick de Vries' pace and that AlphaTauri is just abysmal. I wonder when he'll get replaced. But that is the most audacious dive bomb I think I have ever done on this game, on any F1 game. That could have only been done on these tyres. You would not have been able to do that in any other scenario. But there you go, an audacious dive bomb takes us from P21 all the way to P16, behind our teammate now, Lance Stroll. So he is beating a lot of the people I would expect him to beat, apart from Albon. I feel like I'd want him to beat Albon, but other than that, but then again, Albon is a high overall in this game, so I guess I could maybe tolerate it, but he is ahead of most of the guys that I would want him to be ahead of, so that's good. Everybody above, you know, in the Alpines and the McLarens and obviously, I mean, this Haas, yeah, even the Haas actually, the Haas is a powerful car. They just don't have very good drivers. Magnussen's decent, good enough to get points, but Lawson, he just isn't doing it right now. Haas started off really strongly and they just fell off. And yeah, we've got past Piastri and now we're fighting with Magnussen, who's actually fighting pretty hard for that. Actually dived there and he does the switchback, and that was quite a big battle going into Maggots and Beckett. But now we find ourselves ahead, behind, just behind our championship rival Max Verstappen. We give him a big squeeze right there. And as if the AI is retaliating, Pierre Gasly gives me a squeeze. But obviously, we don't relent. We're not in these battles. I mean, obviously, in terms of Verstappen, we want to finish ahead. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with Verstappen. Verstappen has just completely fell off in the championship. I would have thought in this race he would have been like right back to placing really high up in the grid, but apparently not. And now we have a big gap of about 6 seconds to catch up to Leclerc. Lap 9 out of 18. It's looking really good, and by the next lap we've actually caught up to Charles Leclerc, who's actually fallen back behind Bottas a little bit. So Sainz may have had a really good setup, but Leclerc did not. And I feel like this is the MyTeam really coming into play, or at least the career mode facilities really coming into play, where the second driver, once you know, other teams get their simulators really dialed in, the second driver you know, gets really good over the first driver, which is why in a lot of career modes you actually see Sergio Perez outperforming Max Verstappen. That's not necessarily happening here. There are a couple of races where Perez is doing better than Verstappen, case in point this one, but it seems the big one here is actually Carlos Sainz doing a lot better than Charles Leclerc. There's other instances of it across the grid, of course. Lando Norris is doing better than Lewis Hamilton. So, yeah. Pretty cool, I suppose. I wish there was like a little option where you could kind of flick that off, because in some instances it doesn't make any sense. Like, why would Perez be doing better than Verstappen over the course of the season, you know? I feel like there should be an option where we could turn off second driver facility upgrades for other people, but I'd rather have stuff like being able to tell our second driver when to pit and deciding their strategy and stuff like that before we get anything like that, to be honest. So there's that. But there was a massive gap to catch up to Hamilton, and it only took us about 3 laps to actually pull on them. So I don't know what's going on with these conditions, but it makes the intermediates seem so overpowered. Like, this is genuinely one of the best races of my career, and I have no idea what's going on. You know, we're just doing so much better. These guys have not pitted at all, and I think it's just because it's still heavy rain, don't get me wrong, but I think it's because we're in race conditions that, you know, there's a proper racing line here, and you know, there's a proper dry, like a damp part of the track. There's no standing water because these cars and all the wet tyres have actually gotten rid of that standing water. Hell, we were one of those cars since when we just came out of the pits on the Inters. The track felt like intermediate conditions, and so Everyone's kind of screwed up here not pitting, as we now go to catch up to Lando Norris, of course, in the Mercedes. Let's see if he's going to put up a fight. But yeah, the Inters absolutely feeling crazy right now. We're actually going to try, oh my god, over the bump. We took some damage, and Lando Norris really didn't want to let that go. He actually made quite a bit of contact there, and he struggled to actually keep it on the track there. We've taken some underbody damage, and that, along with the Inters getting worn, it's going to make the later laps a little more difficult. But I don't think it's going to affect us too much compared to these guys on the wets, on these worn wet tyres. I think we're still going to be quicker, obviously. We are struggling to make it through corners like that now, but Perez has been disposed of, and now pretty risky move on George Russell there has caused a couple of crashes in the past. But, you know, we managed to do it there, a little bit of camaraderie between me and my fellow Brit, and now we set our sights on Sainz, the man who I genuinely thought would have been our championship rival throughout the course of the season, but obviously Ferrari have fallen off a little bit in terms of the drivers' championship. Anyway, in terms of the constructors, I think they're winning. I don't know. It might be them or Red Bull, because I just don't know. I haven't really heard much about Sergio Perez other than Jeddah. It was weird. I thought Perez was going to be in for the championship title run, especially like with how he dominated that Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. But yeah, he's not been around. It's mostly been Verstappen that I've seen. But yeah, he's placing a lot higher this time, P4, so he's picking up the pieces here. But George Russell in that Aston Martin is doing incredible. So good on him, honestly. He made a good career choice, leaving Mercedes and becoming the lead driver for Aston Martin. They did start a lot better at the beginning of the season, but yeah, I'm hoping Aston Martin definitely join the title festivities later on. It will make it more difficult for ourselves, but it will make the content a lot better. But now we are just looking for any way to get past Sainz. Of course, our car is damaged at this point. These Inters are looking a little worn, so yeah, we're trying to find a way past Sainz while battling the damage that we have on this car, and it seems kind of equal so far. We've pulled a little bit of a gap on George Russell by about a second as we go into Maggots and Beckett's. Really trying to get in front of Carlos Sainz now, and we're going to press on the ERS. Nico Hülkenberg is out of the session. I think he had a little bit of an engine failure, as you'll see later on, but we're managing to overtake Carlos Sainz now. We squeezed him quite a lot, to the point that I felt kind of bad, so I kind of let go of the throttle a little bit and you know, let him get back into the fight a little bit. And we've had some understeer here as Sainz goes down the inside. I've had to back out of that to give him some space as we now go on to the final lap. About to go past the stricken Sauber of Nico Hülkenberg, so that was definitely an engine failure. He must have had problems earlier on, because yeah, he must be well away from the rest of the grid. But now, oh, bit of contact there with Carlos Sainz. Very lucky to not receive any damage. But now we go through this corner. Carlos Sainz, well, there's the difference in tyres. We've had a much better exit there, and we are going to burn through this ERS to pull a gap on Sainz to about almost half a second by the end of this straight. So, yeah, a pretty strange race considering how the conditions are supposed to work. Everybody clearly should have pitted for wets, for Inters, sorry, like I did as soon as we got rid of the standing water, but I guess people just didn't want to lose positions, and yeah, no one did that, and I obviously did. And wow, it's genuinely been one of the best races, sorry about that, it's genuinely been the best race of my career. I don't think we're topping this in terms of just my pure driving skill. I don't think we're going to top this in any race. I don't think my performance here is just not going to be topped at all. So yeah, another win here, and this caps off 3 wins in a row. I think that might be for the first time this series, so yeah, the car is feeling really good. The setups are feeling really good. We're getting along really well with these tracks. And once again, for the first time, we win our home GP here at Silverstone. It's P1
superb driving.
for me.
That is the race win, my friend. Well done.
Plenty of action then here in Silverstone, a memorable race and an impressive victory. Anthony Davidson, what helped them deliver this result, do you think?
Well, keeping their tyre temperatures up in the tricky wet conditions was really important. There's not much grip out there at the best of times, and it's 10 times worse if you're out there on cold tyres. So the way they kept the rubber in its proper operating window was a huge advantage today.
A show-stopping performance from the three drivers approaching the podium right now. It's been an interesting Grand Prix, that's for sure.
Well, it's another win for us as we go towards our trek for the championship. We're getting further and further ahead now. I think we're about 60. This is about 68 points ahead of the driver in second, Max Verstappen. So, yeah, honestly, all we've got to do now is maintain this gap against the rest of the field. So, yeah, a good win there. Carlos Sainz is definitely going to be frustrated with that. Ferrari definitely going to dislike us more and more. And I think the chances of us getting that Ferrari engine next season are pretty much done at this point. We have pretty much stopped Ferrari in every way, shape or form. And look at that, 65 points I think that actually is. 65 points ahead of Max Verstappen now. And yeah, Red Bull lead the championship, only 25 points away from Ferrari though, so yeah, they're going to be even more frustrated with us. But P3 in the championship for us is actually really, really good. And that, I think that shows the competitiveness between Aston Martin and McLaren, the odd Alpine in there. So yeah, hopefully those guys keep battling and kind of tripping over each other. Because if we can get P3 all by ourselves in the Constructors, that's going to bring us quite a lot of money. But obviously our main objective with this career mode is to win the Constructors' Championship. It's only a matter of time before we win the Drivers' Championship, for sure. If we don't win it this season, somehow, we will definitely win it the season after, if there's no regulations. I've got no doubt in my mind about that. But yeah, the Constructors' Championship I'm a lot less sure about, obviously, because there's a lot of slow progress with the development of the car and the second driver. We definitely have the best, you know, the best driver, well, not the best driver, but the best position for a second driver to be in, of course. Our simulator is looking really good, and Lance Stroll being that 97 overall, 95 overall, whatever it was. All we got to do is get his focus up and keep upgrading this car, and eventually we're going to be able to battle for that Constructors, which is going to be great. But that is the end of this episode of F123 My Team Career Mode. If you guys liked it, be sure to hit that like button as hard as you possibly can. For the next episode will be the Belgian Grand Prix. So until next time, I'll see you soon. Peace!